workNet, I am proud to be able to tell everybody that we have Abby Kohut from Absolutely Abby as our guest speaker this morning. And I am so pleased to be able to have her with us. I met her through a mutual friend who runs a job club in the St. Charles area. And we got to talking, and we discovered that we were able to put this presentation on for all of our Illinois residents. And I'll let Abby tell you a little bit more about how she goes about doing her presentations across the country. Let's move on. And right now, I've got 3 polling questions that I would like you to answer before we get started with the presentation, just so that we know who we have and what we've got going on in our webinar today. So what do those answers look like to you, Abby?
I'm watching. This is fun. Let's see. So the first one is, have you known that you're overqualified even though no one said it? That's usually what the audience looks like around the country, so that one makes perfect sense. We've got 83% saying yes to that, or 84%. And then, have you never been considered by yourself to be overqualified? That one is kind of interesting, because I feel like a lot of people out there are having this difficulty. It's usually people that are over 40. So around the country, I find that many people know that they're overqualified when they go in the interview, even though no one has said it. And then this other group, some of you have actually been told you're overqualified, so I'm really glad you're all here. I'm glad you're all here, because we're going to help all of you.
Great, great. All right, what we're going to do here is we're going to give you one more moment to answer the polling questions. And I'm going to, it looks like most people may have answered them. So I'm going to close these polls. And I'm going to thank Abby Kohut one more time for joining us. And I'm going to turn the controls over to Abby.
All right, well, let's get started. So we're doing Success for the Season Search, the benefit of being overqualified. So just to tell everybody a little bit about me, my name is Abby Kohut, and I've been in corporate human resources for approximately 18 years. And along the way, I've hired approximately 10,000 people, which means that 10,000 times I made a phone call and I said, I'd like to offer you a job. And that made a lot of people very excited. The problem is that after I made those 10,000 phone calls, I had to reach out to other people and say, I'm sorry to tell you that you are not going to get the job. And I usually did that through a letter, and it's called a rejection letter. I'm sure many of you have seen it before. And the problem with that is people call me afterwards and say, Abby, what happened? I thought I did so well. How come I didn't get the job? And as it turns out, I wasn't able to share the exact reason why people weren't getting the job for years. And I really didn't like that, because my feeling is I want to help people. I wanted to jump across the desk and tell you exactly what you did wrong so that you could get the next job. And since I couldn't do that, I decided to turn myself into Absolutely Abby. And as Absolutely Abby, I tell the exact absolute truth. That's what I'm all about. That's what my presentations involve. And today I'm going to share with you the absolute truth. So my website is called absolutelyabby.com. And I've been doing this for approximately, since 2009, so a long time at this point. But the thing that makes me different than all the other job search speakers that you might have heard is that I'm doing it by driving around the country in an RV. I left New Jersey in approximately 2012, and I have been actually in September of 2012, so it's almost been 3 years, and it's a full-time job for me now. This is my only full-time job, and I drive around the country. I speak all over the country, And my tour is a self-funded tour, which means I do not have any sponsors paying me to do this. And typically when I speak pro bono for job search groups all around the country. So that is what I've been doing for 3 years. I've been having a great time with it. I've met tons and tons of people. I've spoken in 34 states, and I just love it. And I'm going to continue along. I'm in Rochester right now, headed to New Jersey. So that's my story. But you're here to talk about some other things today. So let's move on to some content. First thing I want to tell you is that I do have slides available for you. The slides that I have available for you are going to be better than the slides you're going to see today because I only have 30 minutes with you today, and I have slides that pretty much take up about an hour's worth of material. So if you would like a copy of the slides, this is all you have to do. You need to write an email to me, and the email is tips@absolutelyabby.com. And the subject of your email should be webinar slides. You don't have to do this now. You can do it when you hang up the phone. It's no big deal. So send an email to tips@absolutelyabby.com. Put the sentence, put the title webinar slides in the subject, and it will automatically bounce back to you with a bonus, which is a cover letter template that I wrote that will help you write a cover letter to any company in corporate America. It's a template that I've been sending out to many, many people, and people have been using it successfully. So as soon as you send that email, you'll get this cover letter template, and then later today, I'll compile all of the names, and I'll send out the slides to all of you. All right, so that's that. So I want to start off with this slide, and it's about being the captain of your career. I want you to think about it. How many of you have heard that a resume should be 1 page in size at most from somebody really, really smart? Just think about that in your own mind. And then I want you to think about how many of you have heard from somebody else that a resume could be 2 pages in size at most from somebody really smart. And some of you may have even heard that a resume could be 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages from somebody really smart. And that's because there are very few facts associated with job search. In fact, there are so few facts that it's kind of unbelievable. So you're going to hear speakers, you're going to hear people talking all the time, and they're going to be talking as if they're talking in facts because they have very strong opinions. And today, I'm going to be talking to you in opinions primarily, but I want you to understand that there is no president of resumes. There's no authority of resumes. There's no God of resumes. There's no policeman of resumes. It's just opinions. But when you hear an opinion, I want you to think to yourself, does this make sense for me? Does this make sense from this person? Does this person have the right experience to be giving me this opinion? And if they do, then go with it and write it down. So I'm going to say a lot of things today. I think you're going to like most of them. But if you don't like something that I say, that's okay, because it's probably an opinion. And this is going to come up a lot during this presentation. You'll see in a minute. Okay, so first I want to define what it means to be overqualified. So if someone says to you, you're overqualified, usually they mean one of these 3 things. Number 1, they mean that you have too much experience. So they're trying to fill a job that requires 5 years and you have 20. It could be that you have too much education. They're trying to fill a job for someone with a bachelor's degree and you have a PhD. Or it could be that they want to fill a job for $50,000 and you used to earn $75,000. This is what they mean when they say you're overqualified. So the question is, why wouldn't an employer want to hire a candidate who's more highly skilled than the job requires? And the answer is, it's about fear. And here is what they're afraid of. So they're afraid of a bunch of things. 1, they're afraid you might have a been there and done that attitude. And they won't know about it till after a couple of months, when you kind of say, you know, I used to do that thing, but now I'm doing it again, and I really don't want to do it anymore. I used to do it. It's just so long ago. I don't want to do it anymore. But you didn't realize it when you accepted the offer. They're also worried you might leave for more money. So a recruiter will call you and say, remember that $75,000 job, that director level job? Well, now I have it, and I'm ready. Do you want to go on the interview? And of course, you better go, because as absolutely Abby, I'm telling you, you got to take care of yourself. So even if you've been in the job for 3 months, you got to go in that interview because it's a better opportunity, and you never want to pass things like that up. The next one is, we're worried your colleagues and managers will be threatened by you because you're very good at what you do. And you all know out there that you are very good at what you do. The next thing is, you might want to be promoted quickly. And you're sitting in my office saying, you know what, I really wanted that director job. I thought I could deal with being just a manager, but I really need that director level job. And it's just, you just got hired. So we're worried about all of these things. Plus, we're worried that you won't take your resume off a Monster, even though you say that you will. And that means you're going to keep looking. So you're going to take this job as a safe job and then just keep on looking. So what we're really worried about is that you're going to quit. And you have a little sticky on the top as a clue. You're going to quit. And after we get you on board, we've paid the recruiter's fee to get you on board. We've paid for advertising. We've onboarded you. We've trained you. All of that is wasted if you quit within 3 months or 6 months or even a year. So that is what the concern is with overqualified people. But the thing is, you and I, we don't particularly like this word overqualified. And so what we're going to do is we're going to change this word today. We're going to change this word from overqualified to absolutely qualified. And that's what I want you to think in your mind. I want you to think in your mind, I'm not overqualified, I'm absolutely qualified. The next time someone says to you, you're overqualified, I want you to say, I'm not overqualified, I'm absolutely qualified, in a very nice, tactful way. And we're going to talk more about this, but normally when I have a crowd of people in front of me at a seminar, I ask them to say this 3 times in a row to get this really dug into their head. So I want you to think to yourself 3 times in a row. We'll do it together. I'm not overqualified. I'm absolutely qualified. I'm not overqualified. I'm absolutely qualified. I'm not overqualified. I'm absolutely qualified. All right, now you got that. So what we're going to do at the end of the seminar here is we're going to give you the rest of the sentence, because if you just say that, it's not going to work. So what you're going to say is, I'm not overqualified, I'm absolutely qualified because, and here's why. And it's going to come up at the end if you stick with me. Okay, well, at least we got the first part down. All right, so let's talk about 5 benefits of hiring an absolutely qualified employee. And these are just 5 that I came up with, but there's a whole lot more. If you were sitting here, I would ask you what you thought. But here are some that I have. First one is being dependable, reliable, and mature. This is true about all of you. So you're not going to go take coffee breaks 3 times a day, or you're not going to go out to lunch for a 3-hour lunch, that kind of thing, because you've been there and you've done that, and you are dependable, reliable, and mature. Next thing is that you have great problem-solving experience. You can probably solve any problem in your particular industry or profession. The next thing is that you have a shorter learning curve. You can get up and running. We're not going to have to train you for 6 months. You're going to know what you're doing right away. And by the way, absolutely qualified employees make excellent consultants. In other words, if you've had tons and tons of experience, when we hire a consultant, we want you to know what you're doing within 2 days. We just want to teach you the acronyms and the terms from our industry, but then we want you to go. We want to press go, and you go. We don't want to train you at all. So if you're absolutely qualified, you're definitely a consultant material. The other thing is you have a proven track record of success. That means that there's been at least one thing that you've done in your career that you are really proud of. And you need to know what these things are. You need to know them for your interview. You need to know them for your cover letter. You need to know them for your elevator pitch. You need to know them when you meet somebody new. And these are things like one-liner items. So for example, I hired 900 teachers in 4 months for Kaplan, the test prep company. That is my proud accomplishment. That's something that comes right off the tip of my tongue. Anytime I meet somebody, if I have to come up with something like that, it's right there. You need to have these little things on the tip of your tongue that you've done in your past, and you should have probably 3 of them memorized, just sentences like, I saved a company $300,000. I helped a company grow by 50%. Whatever it is, something that's numerical would be better, But if not, just whatever it is that you have, you need to have these things for your interview, for your cover letter, and for any time you meet a new person. Okay. Next one is working with different personalities. Now, I have some interesting stories about this. So one story is I worked for a president of a company, and he told his administrative assistant one day, "I pay you to work, not to think." Can you imagine? This was the culture of the company, and I ended up, it's funny because he hired me to help change the culture of the company. Would you believe that? And he hired me, and after I heard about that, I ended up resigning very soon after I got there because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to change the culture of that company. Turns out he begged me to come back, and I did stay there for about 6 months and try very hard, and I did change it a little bit, but it was a hard project. But anyway, that's one story of a difficult personality. Another one that I've heard on in my travels is about someone who got so upset that they were at the boardroom table and they flipped it over onto the people on the other side because they got so mad. Another story, more recently, is some woman told me that the boss got so mad he picked up her chair and dumped her out of it. And the last one is kind of funny. There's somebody told me this recently. I think I was in California when they told me this one, that there was a boss who got so mad he used to jump up on the top of the table and rant and rave at people. And while he was ranting and raving, he would spit at people by accident. And one time his dentures flew out, and they used to call him Mr. Magoo behind his back. Anyway, the point of all that is that there are so many different people that you have come across if you are absolutely qualified, and you can work with each and every one of them. Nothing is going to surprise you anymore. I know nothing will surprise me anymore either. Okay, so these are some of the benefits. Now the thing is, these benefits are things you need to talk about during your interview. So if there's one slide that you should memorize, it's this one. And every time you go on the interview, take these things that are memorized with you and mention to people that you have all of these things, and that will help them understand why being absolutely qualified is a benefit. Today we're going to develop a two-part strategy. We're going to develop absolutely qualified resume and cover letter, and we're going to also develop your absolutely qualified interview. So I want to start off with this. Being overqualified is correlated with age, but it's not caused by age. This is why it's correlated. It's correlated because as you get older, typically your salary goes up. So when you're 60 years old, your salary is probably going to be higher than when you're 25. Probably, I say. Your education might increase because you might go back to school. And your experience definitely does. So somebody who is 60 years old clearly has a lot more experience than someone who's 30 years old. So because of these things, you're more likely to be overqualified as you get older, which is why what I'm going to do is weave in some comments about age throughout this presentation, and it's so correlated. But this does not mean that someone who's 30 cannot be overqualified, because you can. So let's start off with the absolutely qualified resume. The first thing I want to say here is people are always asking me how many years of experience can I list. Now the thing is, if you are trying to make yourself look younger, one strategy there is to chop off some of your years of experience. People always say, well, how many years should I have? And the answer that I get is usually, is it 10 years? Is it 15? Is it 20? Is it 25? What's the right answer? And the answer is that there is no right answer because it's all opinions. There is no magic answer. So the rumor out there lately is 15 years is the right number. But honestly, on my resume, I've been working since 1988, and I have every year of experience on it. And if should I need to ever look for a job, again, I will keep my resume as is with 27 years of experience on it because I like it that way. You can choose whatever you like, and whatever you choose is fine. But there really is no right answer. Okay, so you can chop it off. However, make sure when you chop it off that the first job on your resume is not vice president, because then we're going to know that there are things missing. Maybe the first job should be a coordinator or a specialist or an analyst. That's a first job, but not a vice president or a director. Manager, maybe. Okay, the next thing is to avoid mentioning the number of years. Now I want you to look at your cover letter and your summary on your resume. Make sure that you don't say on there, I have 30 years of experience on it. Because then, as soon as a recruiter sees that, if they're looking for someone with 5 years of experience, you're going to be automatically considered overqualified and they're going to toss your resume out. So instead of saying that number, just say extensive experience and let them count. Next thing is graduation dates. People say, I don't want to put my graduation date on my resume. This is completely fine. You can leave it off. You can put it on. On my resume, it's on there. I graduated in 1988. I'm perfectly fine with my age. I feel like if somebody doesn't want to hire me based on my age, I don't want to work for them. There was one company that I worked for that was always discriminating against people. I stayed there for 6 months. I really didn't enjoy that culture. It was the wrong place for me, and had I known that they were going to discriminate before I got there, I would have saved myself a lot of heartache. So let me tell you, if someone doesn't want to hire you because you're 60 years old, you don't want to go work there anyway. But that being said, you don't have to put your graduation date on your resume. Please, everyone should go look at a website. It's called People. It's PIPL.com. So it's like Pipple, PIPL.com. And on that site, you will find not only your age, you will find all of your past addresses, and you will find people that live in your house. They know everything about you. So if someone wants to figure out your age, it's pretty easy. So the graduation dates, leaving them off is not really helping all that much. And honestly, most recruiters should not be looking at this and should not care. I do know that there is age discrimination again. I know that's happening, but hopefully it's not happening more than, let's say, 10% of the time. Okay. All right, next is technical and tactical skills. Some of you might want to, quote unquote, dummy down your resume. Dumbing down your resume means you're not lying. What you're doing is you're kind of decreasing the level that you're at by using particular words. And you do this by writing your technical skills and your tactical skills. Your tactical skills are things that you do every day. So for example, as a recruiter, one of the things that I do frequently is I schedule candidates for interviews. My last title was Senior Director of Recruiting. So obviously, scheduling candidates is a tactical skill. So if I wanted to dummy down my resume to make my senior director job look a little bit lower level, I would mention that I scheduled candidates for interviews. This is fine to do, completely fine to do. As long as you're not lying, you just mention the lower level skills that you had, and this way you can dummy down your resume, and it will make you look less senior. Okay, then we also have, do not lie about your titles. You cannot say, I was a manager when you were a director. You can't say I was a director when you were a VP. You cannot lie. However, there are many of you out there that have what I call the weird and wacky titles. But what these are titles that companies gave you because they really wanted to come up with their own interesting titles. One person that I met was a resultant. And what he really was a consultant. But they liked the word resultant better, which to be honest, I like better. I think that's kind of cool. However, there are no recruiters currently searching for a resultant. And you have to learn to think like a recruiter. I specialize in teaching people how to think like a recruiter so that they can get found easily. And you're not going to get found if you put on your resume that you were a resultant. So when I say you can't lie about your titles, that doesn't mean you can't change your titles. But the way you do it is you put the title that you were given, and then next to it, in parentheses, you put the title that is more in line with current recruiting. So this resultant would put resultant as their title, and next to it in parentheses, they would put consultant. This is very similar to, let's say that you were a receptionist, but you happen to be doing office management work. Then you would put on your resume receptionist, and then in parentheses next to it, office manager. That's not lying. What it's doing is it's adding additional information. And it's increasing the ability to be found by recruiters. Recruiters are searching by titles and keywords these days, and that is the most important thing you can have on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile, by the way. Okay. Next is add social media links. So here's the question I have for all of you. What are you doing on social media? If you are one of my senior friends in the room, I want you to be on social media for sure. If you are one of my junior friends in the room, I want you to be on social media for sure. In fact, here's my first fact of the day. 94% of the recruiters out there are using social media to recruit. That is a survey that was done by a company called JobVite. They do surveys every year, and they've been doing them for years and years. This year, it's 94% of the recruiters are using social media to recruit. Social media means LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter in that survey. This does not mean that you have to be on Facebook. This does not mean that you have to be on Twitter. However, one of the other facts that I'm going to mention today is that 64% of all recruiters say that they only use LinkedIn to recruit. That is probably shocking to many of you. It is not shocking to me. And the reason it's not is because LinkedIn is free, and we like free things. So recruiters use LinkedIn for free and don't have to pay for ads on Monster, on Career Builder, on Dice, on Hot Jobs, on wherever. So we use LinkedIn for free, and we only use LinkedIn. 64% of the recruiters only use LinkedIn. So if your profile is not solid and being magnetized to recruiters, you are going to lose out big time. So make sure you add your social media links on the top of your resume. You have to have your LinkedIn profile link up there. And if you have Twitter, you should have Twitter up there. If you have any other social media that you think is relevant, put it on top, not Facebook. This, again, is for my senior friends in the room because it indicates that you are hip with technology, because that is one of the concerns that we have, is that you might not have these technical skills, these tactical skills, and social media skills. All right, so let's talk about the absolutely qualified interview. So the first thing is that, I apologize for the loud blaring noise. We're having an alarm in the RV, but it will be off in a second. There we go. Okay, the first thing is your foot is in the door. So if you are in an interview, I don't want you to have negative self-talk going through your head, telling you that you're not supposed to be there and you're not qualified and all of this stuff. Just believe that you're there because someone believes you're actually qualified for this position, and you can get the job if you are a solid interviewer. The next thing is I want you to expect a younger interviewer. And the reason they're going to be younger is because people graduate from college and they are usually wanting to get into human resources. They have their human resources degree, but the world says you can't come into human resources unless you have some experience. So they go out and they work for a recruiting agency and they get their recruiting experience, and then they come into human resources. So they will be younger, and they will probably be in their 20s, and you need to expect that that's what they're going to look like. Eventually, they're going to get into human resources. So most of the human resources people that you meet are going to be on the older side because they've been there and done that. They've been there. They don't like recruiting. They just had to start with recruiting. But that's where everybody starts. So just expect that they're going to be in their 20s. Expect that they're going to have different language than you. Expect that they like to text and they understand that language. Expect that you should mention that you know how to text somewhere in the interview. If you can use the word texting, they'll understand what you're talking about because that's what they do. All right, also you need to check your ego at the door. I told you at the beginning why you're fabulous. I gave you 5 benefits why you're absolutely fabulous, and that's all good. But the thing is, You can't walk in the door telling them why they are going to change their how they're going to change their company before you even get there. So come in the door, tell them what you can do for them, but leave some room for growth. In other words, say, I can do A through W for you. I'm very confident doing A through W, but X, Y, and Z, I'm going to need a little bit of help from you. Or X, Y, and Z, because you're a new industry, I need to learn your industry. Leave some room so that they know that you're going to grow into the job. Because if you know A through Z, there's absolutely no reason for them to hire you because they're going to worry you're going to get bored. Okay, so check your ego at the door. Now, another thing that you should do is, if you are one of my senior friends in the room, I want you to talk about your active activities. So, for example, let's just say that someone says to you, what's your greatest weakness? You can say, you know, I was thinking about that last week when I climbed Mount Everest. Or, you know, I had that same question when I swam the English Channel. Now, the thing is, if you haven't climbed Mount Everest or swam the English Channel, don't worry about it. Just think of what you have done. Maybe you have ridden a bike. Maybe you ride 5 miles a day. Maybe you swim. Maybe you walk. Whatever you do, if you are one of my senior friends in the room, you must talk about your active activities. You must do that. Because one of the things that we worry about when people get older is we worry about your health and your energy level. And if you climbed Mount Everest, I'm not worried about that anymore. So you have to give me something tactfully during the interview that describes your health and your energy. And also, I want you to mention technology. And the way to do that is to bring an iPad with you, or an iPhone, or a Kindle, or something that's relevant in technology. If you don't own one, steal one, borrow one, whatever you have to do, bring it with you on the interview, because it shows that you're hip with technology again. Especially, this is for my senior friends in the room. Now, let me show you this. This is a testimonial I received, and it's from Leon. He says, as an over 50 IT consultant, I'm 2 for 2 in landing jobs after bringing an iPad with me on job interviews in the past year. I never even opened the iPad. I just had it with my portfolio during interviews. Now, the thing is, people always ask me, why did Leon get 2 jobs in 1 year? It's because he's a consultant. And what I tell people is to bring the iPad with you or your iPhone and leave it on the desk so people can see it. Make sure you have it turned off. In fact, what you can do just to make sure they see it is say, oh, let me shut my iPhone off, or let me shut my iPad off. That gets the word in a sentence, and then people will hear it, and they'll say, oh, wow, they're 70 years old carrying an iPad. I'm not really worried about them and technology, because I am worried about you if you're 70 years old with technology, because technology is different. So bring the iPad, bring the iPhone, bring something. Use it in a sentence. Do make sure you know how to turn it on, just in case somebody asks you to do that. Okay. Next, I have a little story about my Grandma Jean. That's the pretty woman in the flowers. That's my family there. And I'm the one in the pink shirt a few years ago. Anyway, Grandma Jean used to live in an apartment building in Brooklyn, New York. And every single day she would take the elevator down to the ground floor, and she would walk across a big crowded boulevard, and then walk another 3 blocks, walk to her senior citizen center, where she would get there and she would feed the senior citizens lunch. She did this from age 70 to age 95. 95, Grandma did this. And so what I can tell you is that in my body, I have the genes of someone who works forever. And she worked her whole life from age 13 to age 95. She passed away when she was 96 because at 95 she broke her hip, and the doctors told her she couldn't work anymore. That's when she passed away, because she couldn't work anymore. She had no reason to live. So I'll tell you what, if I was age 70 sitting in a chair, I would tell the recruiter, you know, I may not be 25 years old. You might notice that. But I'm telling you, I'm not going to retire anytime soon because my Grandma Jean worked until she was 95. And you can borrow that story if you want. Because the thing is, one of the things we worry about as people get older is that you're going to retire. And if you're going to retire, you're going to be quitting. It's the same problem, okay? So if you are one of my senior friends in the room and people are looking at you funny, if you can see that they're looking and they feel that you're older, you know it, I know you know it, please mention something about retirement, that you're not going anywhere. Okay, this is an interesting quote. Being called overqualified is actually a blessing in disguise. And the reason that is because very rarely do you actually know why you are being rejected. And if someone says you're overqualified, that's fantastic, because now you know, and now you can overcome the objection. So in some cases, you're going to have to anticipate the objection. They're not even going to tell you you're overqualified, but you're going to know, because you're going to just, you know the job description, and you can see that they want 5 years and you have 20. You know you're overqualified when you're sitting there, but they brought you in for a reason. They like you. So you have to talk about this concept. This is very, very important. You must bring this up. You have to say this. You can see I worked at a higher level before, but this position is exactly what I'm looking for, and here's why. This is the elephant in the room. This is the thing that no one wants to talk about. No one wants to talk about your age. No one wants to talk about the fact that you're 20, you've got 20 years and they want 5. No one wants to talk about the fact that you have a PhD and they're looking for a bachelor's degree. No one wants to talk about it. But the fact is, they need to talk about it with you because they're thinking it. If you don't talk about this in the interview, what's going to happen is they're going to be thinking it at the end of the day, and you're going to get the rejection letter without having talked about it. Or they're not going to think it, and they're going to go to their boss and tell them all about you. And then the boss is going to say, what are you kidding me? This person is way overqualified. We can't bring them in. And they won't have any fodder to give the boss. So you have to talk about this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 1 or 2 today. 2 here's why. These go at the end of that sentence. So again, it's like this. You can see I've worked at a higher level before, but this position is exactly what I'm looking for, and here's why. I was proud to be a nurse manager, but I really miss working with patients as my main function. I have had the big salary and the big title, but now I just want to make a difference. Okay, this is something that you might say. Now, if you're not a nurse, that's okay. What you do is you take this, if this applies to you, you take it, you rewrite it, you morph it into something that works for you, then you memorize it. You make sure it's completely 100% honest before you memorize it, and then you send it into your brain, you memorize it, and you bring it with you to the interview. And this is going to work, again, if you were like a vice president of IT and you want to go back to being a technician, or if you were the senior director of recruiting like I am and you might want to be a recruiter someday. It works the same way. So this is one of the here's whys. And here's another one for you. I understand the budgetary constraints of a nonprofit like the American Cancer Society. Money is not my main motivator because my kids are out of college. Okay? This is somebody that wants to take a step down in salary. I understand that I'm not going to be making $100,000. I'm going to be making $30,000. But the thing is, I really want to work for the American Cancer Society because my father passed away from leukemia. And money's not my main motivator because my kids are out of college. I'm not paying those bills anymore. Or it could be money is not my main motivator because I live in an RV right now. Whatever it is, that's what you have to tell people. You must bring these things up during the interview if nobody mentions that you're overqualified. Now, I told you that you're going to get the slides. When you get the slides, what's going to happen is you're going to get more here's whys. You're going to get 6 of them. So that's why you definitely want to email me at tips@absolutelyabby.com and request the slides to get 6 here's whys to give you some ideas. Now, occasionally, you're going to get lucky and someone's going to say you're overqualified. And if that happens, these are 2 comebacks that you might try. One is, if you were having open heart surgery, would you prefer a qualified surgeon or an overqualified one? The other one is, if you were a passenger on a plane, would you prefer a qualified pilot or an overqualified one like Captain Sully? He's the guy that was on the Miracle on the Hudson plane. If you don't believe that these comebacks work, first of all, these are going to require a little bit of Brooklyn personality to pull off, but they do work. I get thousands of testimonials from people that try these things, and they do work. I will tell you, if you're going to use one of these, you definitely want to observe the silence. When you plant one of these lines on somebody, there's going to be silence, and the silence is going to be them trying to figure out how to overcome this, because the truth is they can't. These are really good comebacks. and they are going to help you get a job. Here's an example. This is Donna. When I interviewed for a job, the hiring manager told me I was overqualified for the position. I said, why settle for Chevy when you can have a Mercedes-Benz? I need very little training and I can hit the ground running. That was on Friday afternoon. By Monday morning, my recruiter told me he decided to drive the Mercedes-Benz. Funny thing is, I didn't even give her this one. She came up with this one herself. I gave her the other two. But I have people writing to me all the time. When you see the slides, you're going to see some of the other testimonials of the people where this actually works. So this works on the phone. If people tell you you're overqualified on the phone, try one of these lines. You have nothing to lose because right now you're out. When someone says you're overqualified, you're done. You got to try something. So if you don't feel comfortable with the comebacks, go with one of these here's whys, and that will work for you. So this is the last quote I want to leave you with, and it's impossible to be overqualified unless you believe you're overqualified. This is really true because if you believe you're not overqualified, if you believe you're absolutely qualified, then you are. It's just that you have to be able to explain it to me. This is what it's all about. If you are overqualified, you need to say, I'm absolutely qualified, and explain to me why it is that you are absolutely qualified. And if I believe you, we have a deal, and we'll get you going. I've hired so many absolutely qualified people in my career, I can't even tell you. And they're fabulous employees because they are dependable, reliable, mature, and all of those things that I talked about at the beginning. So if you feel that you are one of these people, please make sure that you say these things. All right. I want to leave you with this. I'll leave you with it in a second. Whoops, there it is. Sorry. There we go. How would you like to become a magnet for 188,000 recruiters? Well, you can. And how would you like to have your profile critiqued by a recruiter who has hired 10,000 people to be sure you set it up correctly? You can. This is for all of you. So I just left Chicago. I was in Chicago for about 3 weeks, and Dee found me as I was literally leaving Chicago. And I'm sorry that that happened because I wish I had gotten to meet every single one of you. I will be coming back to Chicago in a year. However, you really don't want to wait a year to get your profile up to snuff when 64% of recruiters are only using LinkedIn. So if you do want to get your profile critiqued by me personally, and if you want your profile to be a magnet for 188,000 recruiters, please go to powerfulprofiles.com. When you go to powerfulprofiles.com, you need to put in the code workNet. That is your code, workNet. When you put that code in, you will see a special discount that will help you get my critique from me. So in other words, on the site, when you read it, it's going to say some recruiter is going to be critiquing your profile. And that is because occasionally I have a team of recruiters doing these things. But if you put in the code workNet, I will do your critique personally. Now my critique is going to be a recorded critique. It's going to come to you via email. You just click the button and it will say play, and you will play it and you will hear my voice, and I'll be doing things like this. Hi, I'm looking at your profile and you're missing this, you're missing that, your picture, I'm not sure, I don't know if I like your picture. I don't like your titles. These titles are not exactly right. You don't have enough keywords. You need to put this keyword in there. You need to join this group. That's how it's going to sound. So if you want to sign up for that, it's powerfulprofiles.com. The code is workNet. And oh, here's a little testimonial for you. This came from Chris, and he's a Chicago person that I just met, literally, a couple weeks ago. And he wrote, wow, this LinkedIn hint worked quickly. Just thought I'd share a quick success story. I used a hint from your teleseminar about locations and job titles a couple days ago. And yesterday, an Atlanta-based recruiter contacted me about a Chicago-based opportunity for a sales controller, which is my top job title. Looking forward to your profile critique. I hadn't even done his critique, but the teleseminar helped him so much that he knew how to get it up to 90%. And when I did his critique, I got it to 100%. This testimonial just came in a couple weeks ago after I left Chicago. All right. And this is Fred, same thing. He met me in San Diego, and he said I assisted with the review. I met him in March, and he said, I was found by many more recruiters and had potentially 3 offers coming. He took one of them. You're a blessing. These are live, honest testimonials. You'll see them all over my site. Anyway, just to remind you all, you can stay in touch by sending an email to tips@absolutelyabby.com. You're going to get that cover letter template. You can also visit my website, which is absolutelyabby.com. And if you'd like, you can send me a Facebook friendship request. I always accept those. And I also accept any and all LinkedIn invitations. Just mention that you saw me on the workNet webinar, and I'll happily accept that. And even if you don't mention it, I'll still accept. I love to build my network. I've got 12,000 LinkedIn connections, and I'd like you to be one of them. So, absolute pleasure. And let's get to some questions, Dee. Can we do that?
We've got some questions coming up right now.
Okay.
I would love to thank you, Abby, for joining us today. You've given us a number of tips that we will be able to use for all of our work moving forward. And a couple of the questions that we have here. Jim Walsh asked, many online application pages will not accept applications without dates. How do you handle that?
Well, you can't do anything about that. In other words, if the application won't let you go forward without adding the dates, then you have to choose whether you want to add in a date or not. But I'll tell you this, one of the things that you should be doing is applying around the application. In other words, not applying through the black hole or the abyss, as I like to call it. And there is a way to get around the application, to get around the recruiter. Remember, I was a recruiter. I teach people how to get around me because I don't want you to be applying through the black hole anymore. I want you to do some other things. That's also part of the teleseminar. If you go to Powerful Profiles, you'll learn exactly how to get around that application. So your answer is either fill it in or go around it, but you don't have any other choices.
And Laura Lewis asks, how do you dummy down your skills? I know you gave one example. Could you give one or two more?
Sure. So, okay, so for me, I can only talk about me because I'll give you mine. So again, I was a senior director of recruiting, and one of the skills was scheduling candidates for interviews. That is a low-level skill that could be done by an administrative assistant. It's not a senior director skill. So I would just add that on my resume, scheduled interviews for candidates. Another one that would be a low-level skill for me would be interviewing candidates because I'm a senior director. Senior directors don't interview candidates. They usually manage teams, which is what I did. So I could say I interviewed candidates. These are not lies. These are truths because sometimes I did interview candidates and sometimes I did schedule candidates. So you put things like that on your resume and that dummies it down.
Great. The next question that we have is from Jim Walsh. And he made a comment more than he asked a question, but I'm wondering if we can get some help in here.
Okay.
Jim has never been told why he's rejected, and he's wondering why or how he can find that out.
You cannot find that out unless you ask. And even if you ask, you're probably not going to find it out. I never ever told somebody why I was rejecting them unless it was a reason that I knew was concrete. In other words, if the reason is you don't have an MBA, that's concrete. There's no argument there, but I would never tell somebody if I was rejecting them because they didn't fit the culture, or if I was rejecting them because I was worried about them being a long-term employee. So you're not going to get the real reason most of the time. You can certainly ask, but you're not going to get it. So this is why I'm telling you that if you think you know the reason, if you think it's your age, or if you think it's your overqualifiedness, you need to bring it up during the interview and overcome the objections before they even happen.
All right. Jim also asked, he's 62 with considerable experience as a corporate trainer and a few years of experience as a customer service supervisor. He's considering going back to school to earn some credentials like an MBA. He already has difficulty obtaining responses to his job applications and no interviews. Will the advanced degree give him results that are worse?
It depends. If you're looking for a customer service position, yes, the MBA is probably going to hurt you. If you're looking for a training position, no, the MBA is going to help you. Now, the question is, can you leave the MBA off your resume? And that depends on who you ask. So there's no right or wrong answer there either. If you take the degree off your resume, some recruiters might see that as lying. Some recruiters see that as just not telling everything. Because if you think about it, you don't tell every single thing. You don't put every single thing on your resume, right? So you choose what job descriptions to put on there. And so I would say that you could leave the MBA off your resume, and it will hurt you maybe 20% of the time, but most of the time, recruiters should be okay with it. And you know what you could do is you could bring up the MBA during the interview and just say, by the way, I have an MBA, but I didn't put it on my resume because I didn't want it to scare you. I really want to do customer service, and the reason is because I just love helping customers. And you know what? I've done all these jobs before, and I've had all these fancy titles. I love helping customers. I love helping customers. And by the way, working for you, Starbucks, I buy coffee at Starbucks every single day of the year, and it would give me nothing but pleasure to do customer service for your company. Or JetBlue, you're my favorite airline. It would do me nothing but pleasure to work in customer service for your company. So that's why I want this job. I'm not interested in being an MBA. I'm not interested in being a director or a VP anymore. This is what I want to do. You have to have conversations like that because that's the elephant in the room.
Thanks. Julie Adler, you had typed in a question. I accidentally deleted it. If you could type in your question again, I would appreciate it. Clarence asked, how do you get around the request for past salary information?
You don't. You just give it to them. If they ask, because every single interview that I did, I asked for salary. Why? Because I'm trying to save everybody a lot of time. I'm not going to send you in for an interview where you're looking for $100,000 and the job pays $30,000. I need to know what you used to earn, and that's how I'm going to determine whether to bring you in for the interview. So you have to be able to talk about salary on the phone. If someone says, what was your last salary? And let's say it's a nonprofit. Let's say it's the American Cancer Society saying, what was your last salary? You say, it was $100,000, but honestly, money is not my main motivator. I had kids in college, and they've graduated. I used to live in a big house, and now I've downsized to an apartment. So I don't need $100,000 anymore. I want to work for you because my father passed away from cancer, and that's why I'm here. So please don't be concerned with my $100,000 salary. That's how you deal with that.
And that's important if you get the chance to talk to them about it. You're able
Right.
to explain those kind of things, but if they ask for it, is it advisable to add a paragraph or a comment in to the written request information?
Yes, and not only that, if you're applying for a job in your cover letter, you can mention the whole salary thing. If you're applying for a job that you know is going to be lower salary than you were at, just mention it in the cover letter, just what I just said. And you're going to get this recording so you can transcribe what I said. But the point is, talk about it. You have to talk about these things. This is why this isn't working, because there's this elephant in the room for all of you, and you have to bring it up. You have to bring it up on the cover letter, wherever you can, so that they get it, that you are not concerned about salary, you're not concerned about title, whatever the problem is, whatever the discrepancy is between you and the job, that's what you have to explain.
Great. Arlene asked, since 64% of recruiters only use LinkedIn, should she not even bother to apply on the job boards? Many companies give you that option to apply through LinkedIn, but still direct you to their website to apply.
Yes, even though 64% are using it, I do recommend that you also use everything else. So this is me. If I was looking for a recruiting job right now, I would be using LinkedIn. I would be using Monster, Career Builder, all the boards. I would be using boards like the Society of Human Resources Management, which posts HR jobs. I would be doing all of it, even though 64% of recruiters only use LinkedIn. The only reason I mention that is because you don't realize how many opportunities you're missing right now because your profile is invisible on LinkedIn. And I'm a person that is going to show you why. What happens is you go see about 5, 6 other LinkedIn seminars, and you're hearing it from great people. They're wonderful people, but they haven't done the kind of recruiting that I've done. So they won't be able to tell you exactly what I tell you. People tell me this all the time, that they've heard other seminars, and they've never heard what I talk about. So you'll see when I do your critique, you'll understand why you are currently invisible. And it drives me crazy, Dee. There are people all around the country that are invisible and have no idea about it.
Right, right. And I teach LinkedIn webinars or workshops all the time, and I've talked to people like you, and it's interesting the advice that people don't take from you.
Yeah, yeah.
Tamara is asking, how do you incorporate freelance work in your resume or in the discussion during an interview? She's done a great deal of freelance writing and teaching, but have a difficult time conveying that on her resume because it's not necessarily seen as a real job.
Well, I see it as a real job, so it depends on who people are not necessarily seeing it. You know what I mean? It's all opinions. And I can't really answer that without looking at your resume and doing, spending some time with you on the phone to help you with that type of thing. So if anybody out there wants to spend an hour with me on the phone, you can send an email to tips@absolutelyabby.com, and I'll let you know how that might work.
All right, we've got another question from Connie. When you don't have much formal education, but you have loads of experience, what's the best way to highlight the experience and downplay the lack of education?
What I would probably do is take the education section off your resume and hope that the recruiter misses it. I know that's kind of crazy, but I'll tell you, I missed it a few times. And I brought candidates in that didn't have a degree, and then it turns out I'm sitting there talking to them, so I might be able to place them anyway because I brought them in by mistake. So I would take the education off. That would downplay it.
And Gloria says, I am successful getting contract jobs and do well. Now I am employed full-time for a great employer, but am on short-term disability for 8 weeks. Will the employer hold this against me when I return to work? Should I start interviewing now?
Okay, I don't think I understand. Can you read that again? I'm going to try to concentrate more.
I am successful getting contract jobs and do well.
Okay.
She's currently employed full-time for a great employer, but is on short-term disability for 8 weeks. Maybe she had surgery or something.
Okay.
Will the contractor hold this against her when she returns to work? Should she start interviewing now? And I think I got that right, Gloria. So
I think that no one would hold it against you, and no one would know that you're on short-term disability unless you tell them. So I wouldn't tell them. Am I not thinking right, Dee?
I think if she's on short-term disability, the contractor would have had to told them.
And tell them, but what about the new company? She's asking about would the new company.
Well, let me see
I'm
if she
confused.
clarified this down lower.
Okay.
I see something else from her, but it doesn't reference that. Gloria, give me some clarification in the bottom, and we'll come back to you. All right, and let me go back up here. Julie asked, can you speak more about, excuse me 1 second, how to deal with a 20-something recruiter interviewing an older candidate. Many look for someone like them and not for someone qualified. As an older worker, I often do not feel confident that they will understand my situation and become an advocate for me. And I kind of see that. I'm a social media strategist. I have the brain of a 25-year-old, but the personality and body of a much older person. So
yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, I don't really have the magic answer. I wish I did, but it's really all about your interview skills. It's about learning how to, practicing, going into do mock interviews and just practicing it. It's not, there's nothing magical here. Being able to explain, it's really about mock interviews. I mean, that's what I would do, is I would be going on mock interviews, working with professionals that can help you through those kinds of things. And, you know, I'm happy, again, same thing, if you are interested in doing that with me, I do those over the phone for people all the time. But it's about learning the right words to say. It's about speaking their language. It's about telling them about the fact that you have lots of friends that are in their age range or something like that you're comfortable with the younger generation. I'm in my late 40s, and I don't feel like I would have a problem with this because I know I'd be able to, I just feel like I would be able to talk to them because of the fact that I have younger, I like certain types of music that they like, so I would be able to relate to them better. So if you don't feel like you have the kinds of connections to relate to them, probably you should spend some time with people in that generation and ask them, what do they like? What kind of music? What, like, just try to maybe even interview them and, like, get to know them a little, and then you might have a better idea of how they tick when you get to the interview.
All right. We got some clarification from Gloria. She is not a contractor. She is an employee now. She was hired as a permanent employee for the great company after a year of contracting. Now I've been a permanent employee for over 1 year, and she's currently on the short-term disability.
Yeah.
And Jim Walsh offered that her current employer cannot discriminate against her without violating labor laws.
Correct.
So,
sure. And her new employer can't, I think what she's saying, but I could be wrong, is she's currently wants to look for another job, and will the other job discriminate against her because she's on disability? And what I was saying is she doesn't have to tell them that she's on disability. That's what I think. I think that I got that right, but I don't know.
And maybe Gloria can send you an email and you can answer her question specifically.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Let's go back up and see what we can get questions here for you. Tamara says, oh, I think you may have answered her question. She was going to ask if you had to put everything on your resume. I've noticed when I don't list all of my education, when they complete background checks, it seems to appear as if I wasn't honest on my resume or the application.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's, you should put, right, the resume and the application probably need to be similar, because if you're going to leave things off your resume, then you're going to, that's why I understand why people would chop things off their resume, but it's not my thing. Like, I would definitely just keep it all there. That's how I feel. But I'm at, you know, high 40s. Some people that are 60 might feel that it's just too much. And you have to make your own decision about that.
Charlene says, thank you for the great information. I see changes being made on my resume already, and now I know the other side of the interview, and she's got a big smiley on there, so she liked that.
Good.
Michelle says, I want to move up instead of being the same, limited PC technician support position. How would I be able to move forward in my career if employers won't give me the opportunity to prove my skills to them? And I can see that happening because we've got a lot of people in Illinois that go through a career change.
Yep.
And maybe they've got those transferable skills that they can bring from another job, but they've got new technical skills. Can you address that for just a moment?
Yeah, so if you have new skills, the best thing to do is to try to get an internship or try to work for free for somebody just to practice so that you can have some experience to bring to the table. But the thing is, you're competing right now. If you are doing a career change, it's probably the hardest time in our, at least in my lifetime, it's the hardest time to be doing it, because what you have here on this call is you have people that are overqualified that are willing to take a step backwards. So this is why it's so hard for new college grads, because we've got people that are in their 30s that are willing to take the jobs that the new college grads, you know, they're willing to take even less money, but they have the skills. So you're going to have to try something like you're going to have to network your way in. You're going to have to get an internship or do some volunteer work. You've got to just get some experience, and then employers will take you seriously. It's a hard road, but I congratulate you for taking it. And but you will eventually make it all happen. I believe it.
Great, great. Let me see. I think I've got one more question here. Clicked on the wrong one. In regard, things keep jumping because people keep typing in here. In regard to the last question about younger people, I believe it's about talking to them, stating clearly what you can do for the position and organization, basically making the connection. And it's exactly what you were saying. You know, have a chat with younger people and find out what's relevant and
Right.
and what they need to do.
Mhm.
All right, let's see. I'm clicking through here to see. Elaine Harris says, thank you so much, Abby. Your presentation is fantastic.
Thank you, Elaine.
And when one has a permanent job and you're looking to move, are there ways of not allowing your current employer from seeing that you're looking?
Yeah, there's special ways to set up your LinkedIn profile like that, which you will learn about if you go to powerfulprofiles.com. But there's you just have to keep it kind of silent. There's all kinds of strategies for looking without letting them know. But if you want to go on interviews in the evenings, you want to take phone calls during the day, those kinds of things. I mean, lunchtime. But you're going to have to take days off. You're going to have to feel a little bit guilty. That's just the name of the game. But at the end of the day, I want everybody out there to take control of their career, and I want you to find the perfect job for you at this time. So I want you to do whatever it takes to do that. And don't worry about your employers. They're not all that dedicated to you these days.
All right. Julie Adler says, thank you for this valuable information.
You're welcome, Julie.
Diana Denton said, is there a site that can make a nice profile for you to then refine further?
Site that can make a nice profile for you to then refine further. No, well, I don't know of one. Here's the thing. If you're talking about LinkedIn, just go to powerfulprofiles.com, put in workNet, and you will get access to this teleseminar, which is going to teach you exactly how to set up your profile. It's not that hard. The way I teach things, you saw today, it's like very full of content. You're going to have an hour's worth of packed with content, and you get a whole lot of other really good resources. There's like 3 free teleseminars that come with it too. But that site is going to help you set up your profile to exactly what you need to set it up to. So there's nothing to worry about.
And Diana, on Illinois WorkNet, we've got all sorts of resources available too that talk about, I've actually done 2 different webinars on LinkedIn, and then our Optimal Resume has word suggestions within it that might help you with some of those keyword suggestions. So depending on whether you want to do it yourself kind of avenue, you might be able to use that. Laura Lewis says, thanks, Dee. Great guest speaker.
Thank you.
So that was for you. And then we've got Tamara. Things keep jumping here. Another concern I have about employment. Whoops. I encountered major issues at my last employer. They really railroaded me close to EEO issues, but I did not file a claim. The job ended due to personal issues of the director because of my color and education, but I think it has really hurt me in the long run. How do I overcome this?
Yeah, this is not a question for this webinar. This is a question for me. We can spend an hour on the phone. I have a consultation that I can do for anybody. If you send me an email to tips@absolutelyabby.com, I would be happy to tell you about it, because this is definitely not the forum for this. Because that issue that you talk about, if you've been fired from a job, if you have left a job and you don't have a good reference at a job, if you have a spotty resume, if you have tons of gaps, these are things that are going to hurt you with employers like me, where I used to be. And that's why I do what I do. I help people overcome these blemishes. So I want to help you, but you got to write to me at tips@absolutelyabby.com.
All right, and let's see here. We've got a common attitude among my teenage classmates at RIT is that old people aren't comfortable with the internet and don't get technology. John, I'm very, 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 well, I'm over 55, and I teach all kinds of people about social media. So it's not necessarily the age, it's the ability to learn and accept. So I think it's how you portray that as a job seeker would very definitely, like Abby said, bring an iPad, whether you open it up or not. Mention texting, mention your use of social media, just so that people that are younger than you will understand what's going on with that. Jim Walsh says he's having trouble navigating the powerful profiles. Where should he key in the workNet key?
What happens is you do powerfulprofiles.com, and then you say that you want to sign up, and then it will be on a page where you sign up. There's a place for a coupon code. That's what you're putting in. When you put in workNet, that's where it goes.
All right. All right. And then...
And you know what, Jim, if you have more problems, just email tips@absolutelyabby.com, and I'll send you a personal email with some help, okay?
All right. All right. So just a couple more comments here. Gloria says, fantastic presentation, Abby.
Thank you, Gloria.
And then Tamara says, great, thank you so much. I came in late due to computer issues, but I learned a lot in this short time here.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so that's the end of our questions. For those of you who are left on the webinar, we've got a couple of qualifying questions here that we would love to know how you feel about the webinar. And we've got a couple of links up in the top. We've got a link to Absolutely Abby. We've got a link to our Illinois WorkNet Virtual Job Club on LinkedIn, where you can participate and learn some more things about your job search. And then we have a link to our social media for your job search on Illinois WorkNet website. So take a look at all of those resources. You can link to them there. And as you are completing this, I want to again thank Abby Kohut of absolutelyabby.com for joining us today. She did a wonderful job answering all of your questions and sharing a lot of great information. And if you want to move forward, just remember to send her that email. And thanks, Abby, for joining us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you all. I'll see you the next time I come to Chicago. Take